Hello, welcome to another read with me. I'm yours truly, Isabel, and we are just about almost finished with this amazing little book, View from the Top by Zig Ziglar. We're going to be covering chapters 9, 10, and I'll throw in another one for you guys. It's going to be chapter 11. And that pretty much concludes this whole entire book that we've been able to finish in 1 week's time, which is awesome. This is the first book that I've completed in a week's time. Yes, that's a pretty awesome, it's like now that you've completed it in a week, now you can do this over and over and over and over and over again and have the ability to, just complete different types of books. Like this particular book, just so you are aware, is about 190 pages. So let's say 200 pages in a week. That's pretty good. In audiobooks is different. Like I've completed 2 or 3 books in a week, but it's not the same as actually reading it. So don't get it twisted. You got to get the book, the physical book. So let's get into chapter 9. Let's get started with this. Chapter 9 is significance and spirituality. Significance and spirituality. 2 awesome words that I definitely resonate with a lot. You're at the top when you're filled with faith, hope, and love, and live without anger, greed, guilt, and the thoughts of revenge. Jesus. Wow. That's strong. I love that. In our day and age, we're hearing more and more talk about spirituality and religion. From my perspective, unless we embrace this spiritual aspect, we miss out on the most significant part of our life itself. I'm going to make a statement that you might at first rebel against and disagree with, but here it is. I believe that deep down, everybody believes there is a God. There's an old saying that you'll never find an atheist in a foxhole. I believe that this is absolutely true. The following information is what leads me to believe that that's more than just an old saying. Back when companies could use a polygraph to determine whether or not to hire a person, for many, many years, Brown Trucking Company out of Atlanta, Georgia, used that option. Polygraph tests were conducted on thousands of people over a period of years, as they had over 100 facilities throughout the country. Brown Trucking Company reported that in 100% of the cases, with no exceptions, when the question was asked, do you believe there is a God? In every case, when that person said no, the polygraph needle went Berkshire, indicating that absolutely yes, the person did believe there is a God. And this question was asked every single time to thousands of prospective employees. Now, I love the story about an incident in Mordecai Ham's life, a fairy evangelist instrumental in Billy Graham's conversion. Reverend Ham was about to start preaching one night when a gentleman walked up to him and said, Mr. Ham, I just wanted you to know I've come to hear you tonight out of pure curiosity. I don't believe in God, and I don't believe in heaven or hell, and I certainly don't believe in prayer. And Mordecai Ham said, well, you're a very unusual fella. And then the young man said, well, I just wanted you to know in advance, that's the way I feel. And when it came down to Mordecai Ham to preach, he got up and said to the congregation, now, folks, we got an unusual fellow with us tonight. He says he don't believe in God, doesn't believe in heaven, and he doesn't believe in hell. And he said he certainly don't believe in prayer. So what I want all of us to do right now and during the entire time I'm preaching, I want you to pray that God will kill him. What happened next? The guy jumped up and ran out screaming, don't you do it. Don't you do it. Don't do it. That man had just proved that he did believe in God, and he did believe in hell, and he did believe in prayer. One of the godliest people I've ever known in my life was a widow with 8 children left at home. She lost her husband on a Thursday, and the following Tuesday, her baby died. This happened during the heart of the Depression. She had a 5th grade education. Her faith in God is the thing that pulled all of us through. She was my mother. Her life, while it was a very difficult one, had a considerable amount of significance. And I will never forget one little incident that enriched my life and made me determined to be more attentive to everything I did. We went to a family reunion every year, and everyone would bring their own goodies for the pig out. And on average, each person's weight gain was about 3 9/10 pounds. We didn't eat until we got full, and we ate until we got tired. Most of the family lived close by our hometown, so they drove, but we had to fly. So we had to buy the food when we arrived that we would be contributing to the gathering. And when we went to the local grocery store and put into the car a smoked turkey, a smoked ham, and a whole bunch of candies and soft drinks, well, when we got to the checkout counter, the cashier gave the bill to my wife. My wife reached into her wallet and pulled out a couple credit cards and her driver's license to show that the cashier, because we were from out of state, and she was going to write a check to pay for the groceries. But when the cashier saw the name on the check, she said to us, "Around here, the name Ziglar is all the ID we all need." Now, please understand that this was way before I became known. Before the books and the tapes and the speaking engagements, I was absolutely unknown at the time. Now, this woman was talking about my mother, who even when she was flat on her back, could sign a note from the bank and get a large sum of money, because they had learned many, many years ago that when Mr. Ziglar signed a note, that meant there would be no question about that note being repaid. That day, I renewed a commitment that whether or not I ever left my children a dime, I was going to leave them a good name. When anyone saw their name, they would just say, "This is all the ID we ever need." And my mother accomplished her objectives in life, which was to make certain that her children were raised properly and had faith. Those objectives wouldn't have been met if none of the spiritual dimensions of her life were seen. Ethics and integrity. One of the magnificent facts about spirituality, about faith, is the fact that it absolutely changes you for the better. It affects your ethics, your values, relationships, in every facet of your life. It affects the way that you treat other people. It affects the way that you treat your mate, your children. It's the way that you handle the truth. Many people in our day and world say, "Well, I just made a mistake." And what they really are saying is, "I know I was wrong when I lied about that. It's just a mistake. Now that I've admitted it, it's a mistake. Let's put it behind us and go on." See, in spirituality, you don't just put it behind you and get on your life. You make restitution. You ask for forgiveness. You take care of the wrong you have done. If your spirituality, your faith is strong, it enables you to live constantly according to ethical and moral standards. To not live consistently is, of course, hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is one of the heinous things that is looked down on by virtually everybody, everywhere. No one likes a hypocrite. To say one thing and do something else is entirely out of character. One of my biggest disappointments involved 2 men, which turned out to be an asset for me. This sounds a little strange until I explain it. And in the early part of my career, I had experiences with 2 men who were internally known and respected. I went into business relationship with one of them, and it didn't take me long to realize that what they said and what their public persona was was entirely different from what they were and what they did in private. In one particular case, for the first and the only time in my life, it became completely discouraged. The man had looked at me straight in the eye and lied to me. I mean, big time. I invested a great deal of time and a considerable amount of money in building an organization, and it was taken away from me. When I received the telegram announcing that particular decision, I was devastated. For about 3 weeks, I was virtually helpless. I didn't have the energy to do anything. Had I not had my wife and children who were depending on me, I really don't know what would have happened. I decided that if I was able to achieve any degree of notoriety, if I ever became known, the one thing that I was going to work the hardest at was being consistent in whatever I did. That's awesome. That's a strong statement. The one thing that I was going to work the hardest at was being consistent in whatever I did. I wanted to make certain that what anyone saw was what they got. And I'm telling you now, that has been one of the greatest privileges and assets, because over the years, the reputation has kept me in good stead. Your ethics, your integrity, and your very life should be the role model, the example for others. And when you are, people will notice. Your ethics, your integrity, and your very life should be the role model. That's the example people will notice. 1 year, as we were starting our own company, before it was actually launched, one of the other competing companies called and asked me to speak for them. I had spoken for them many, many times. So I told them, frankly, I'd be happy to speak, but you need to know that we are preparing to launch our own company. And of course, I would not talk about what we do. I'd talk about what your business is, but I want to be upfront about it. The caller's response was very gratifying. He said, well, I'll talk it over with a couple of the staff, but we're not worried about you. We've dealt with you for many years, and we know you'll do the right thing. That was one of the finest compliments I've ever received. After the talk was over, I received letters saying it was the finest talk I'd ever made for them. They were paying me. I was working for them. So I gave them my 100%, my best efforts to them. Ethics make a difference in life. That's consistency. That's integrity. That's spiritual. People want to know where you are, who you are. They want to know where you're coming from, what kind of person you are. If they see consistency in your life, then they know you can be depended on. If you're consistent in the way that you treat others, they know there must be a reason for it. So the idea of not talking about your spirituality is absurd. So just let your reputation and your character and your integrity shine through. Consistency. One of the amusing, if it wasn't so tragic, concepts that a lot of people have is that you're not supposed to have any money. You're not supposed to be rich. And even throughout the Bible, it shares about our physical and financial well-being. There's nothing wrong with earning and accumulating wealth, especially if you use it for the purpose of others. This is a wonderful thing. But if you give money just to get publicity that goes with it, then that gift is of an entirely different nature. It's ego and publicity driven, making it not significant. But when you give it with a sincere heart for the good of others, now that's significant. Those are the people who have a marvelous view from the top. One of the major factors concerning people today is how we inject into society and share with our children our spiritual values. As my mother told me years ago when we were children and we were young, your children pay more attention to what you do than what you say. What people do, people notice. If we are not faithful to the faith, they won't follow the faith. Why should they? Mahatma Gandhi said, I might have been a Christian if it hadn't been for Christians. That's deep. When we are faithful to the faith, they will follow the faith. They will see you are consistently kind and generous, honest and dependable. In my own spiritual walk, I take a fairly routine approach. I do it because I found that it works for me and it keeps me zeroed in and focused on the target. As I like to tell people, I like to keep the main thing the main thing. When I get up in the morning, 99% of the time, the first thing that I do are shave, wash my face, comb my hair, brush my teeth, then I put on my clothes, go downstairs and turn on the coffee pot. I'm an early riser. I generally get up at 5 o'clock. While the coffee is brewing, I take about 10 minutes and I do my praying. I pray about my friends, my family, those in need, and those sorts of things. I also pray for wisdom and guidance for the day. I pray that God will protect me and my family and that he will give me the right attitude and wisdom to make the right decisions. And then in my office, I spend about 30 minutes reading my Bible and devotions by various Christian authors. All this prepares me for the day, which I believe gives me a huge, huge start. We need to have a routine to strengthen our spiritual lives. A lot of people complain about the lack of time, and I believe it's a lack of direction that is the big problem. And when you make commitments and want to really develop a healthy spiritual life, whatever routine fits in your life, I encourage you to follow through with it. Now, obviously, if you have 3 small children underfoot and you're not going to be able to do the things that I've been doing, that's a different situation. It might be that the afternoon when the children are taking a nap would be a good time for you to do your Bible study. Prayer can be on top of your list all the time. I do an awful lot of praying throughout the day. When I'm doing just about everything, it's a habit now. Obviously, I pray before each meal because God has blessed us. A lot of people in this world don't have anything to eat every day. So thanking him for what we have is a good routine that enables you to do just that. Another special routine could be praying with the children as you're putting them to bed at night. This could be one of the most beautiful spiritual experiences that you can possibly imagine. I believe strongly that the way that you start your children's day and the way that you end their day will be a dramatic impact on what happens between those hours. So remember, the way that you awaken your baby, the way that you awaken when your baby was an infant or when the baby cried, you lovingly picked up and held the baby close and talked or cooed. Why not awaken your babies that way all of their lives? So for example, instead of going by the door of your 8-year-old and banging on it, yelling, "Get up," how about gently knocking and then walking in and saying it's time to get up as you tousle his or her hair? Then you go to the kitchen, turn on the coffee maker, come back and again knock on the door. If you've never done this before, you want to tell them the night before you start that if you've never done this before, you want to tell them the night before you start that tomorrow, there's going to be a little surprise when you wake them up. Then sit on the side of the bed, stroke their hair, lean over and kiss them on the forehead or the cheek and say, "You are so beautiful or handsome and I love you and I'm so glad God sent you to live with us. Today is going to be such a good one, such a good day. You're going to have so much fun. You're going to learn lots and lots of things. And I can't wait for you to get home so we can talk about all the good things that you've learned today." Then when bedtime comes, if your child's bedtime is at 9 o'clock or let's say 8, okay, it's time to get ready for bed. Remember, in 1 hour, we go to bed. And if you need to put the cat out or bring the bicycle in, do it now. Call Sally about the assignment. You need to take both trips to the bathroom and get all the drinks out of water because at exactly 9 o'clock, we're all going to bed and we're going to have fun when we go. Then at 9 o'clock, you turn on the television and said the ultimate insult to the child is to put them to bed during a commercial. We raised 4 children and we believe successfully. Yet I clearly understand that the greatest con artists walking this earth are between the ages of 6 and 13. They use every device as their disposal, including asking incessant and silly questions to keep you there as long as possible so they won't have to go to sleep right away. Children are amazing. They resist going to bed, all the fervor at their disposal. Then during the night, they develop a lifelong romance with the bed. They form a loving attachment to it, and they almost can't separate them from it the next morning. That's just the way they are. At bedtime, children talk to keep you there with them. Let them do it. They will get over the silliness in a matter of 2 to 3 minutes. But during that time, you will bond with your child. Maybe in those next 10 minutes, you will bond more than you've ever been all day long. They will tell you what's on their heart. They will ask you serious questions. And you can tell them a story or read the Bible, and you can even pray with them. That's injecting into their lives what it is to be spiritual in yours. That's the way you share and spread your faith. And in the process, you're raising a child who will have a significant impact in life and the future later on. That's why the view from the top is so beautiful. Here's how to feel better. We live in a hurry world. We've got instant everything. There are many people who don't really quite understand that every day is a significant day. Why not start the day more slowly and deliberately instead of wakening at the last moment to the sound of the opportunity clock? Some people call them alarm clocks, but alarms frighten people and opportunities excite people. So why not set the opportunity clock a little earlier so you have the time to start your day casually and slowly? It won't hurt you to look at the sunrise every once in a while. When you start your day slowly, doctors will tell you that's good for your health. Get up early enough to have the time with your child. Get up early so you can eat a more leisurely and more complete breakfast. Physicians will tell you in a moment that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So when you start slowly, pray about your food, thanking God for the food, that's when you're really, really in the zone. When your family sees you doing that, when they see you doing the things that you see, that you believe, then they will know that you really do believe. The simple starting off the day slowly and ending the day slowly with your family, you'll discover that all the time in between when you've invited God to participate will be a lot smoother. This ritual is so important. And most everything we do is by habit. Once you get into the habit of doing this, you will find it's a routine that enables you to have a more balanced life. You will feel better about yourself and you will feel better about your future. You feel closer to the family, closer to God. And when you put all of it together, you will discover it is the result of having established a habit, of following a procedure that precedes and results. Eventually, you won't even have to think about doing it. You will simply get up each morning and start doing it. Consistency enters your life and spirituality becomes important. It's an approach to life that really makes a difference. That's the way that you achieve significance, and you will enjoy the view from the top even more. Love that. I love that a lot. That concludes the chapter number 9, significance and spirituality. Put it in the comments if you like to start the morning off slow, or if you're the type to get up and go. Some people like that. Or if you're anywhere like myself, like I like to take things slow in the morning. I'm like a sloth in the morning. I like to take my time. I need to process things in the morning. I do not like to be rushed in the morning. I do not like to wake up to like alarms in the morning. We have it set up to where like Alexa wakes us up at a specific time, and it's through meditation music. So I wake up, my body gradually wakes up through smooth sounds, right? And then since we're using like our eye masks, we're in complete blackout, which is awesome, which helps have a really restful night's sleep. It's so important. Like sleep is everything to me, right? And nutrition and food and stuff. So just respecting that time in the morning is so critical, so important. Okay. Put it in the comments if you believe in that. And if you do, virtual high five to you. Okay. Now I want to get into chapter 10, which is balanced, significant goals. Balanced, significant goals. Listen here. You're at the top when you've made friends with your past and are focused on the present and truly optimistic about your future. You've made friends with your past, you're focused on the present, and you're optimistic about the future. Many people are confused about what it means to have it all. They think, for example, that they can spend 12 hours a day at work and then spend a couple hours in an exercise program and then play a round of golf. They think that they can do all those things and still come home and be a good husband or a good wife and cook the meals and clean the house and do all the other things that they need to be done. The reasoning, of course, is absolutely absurd. They're not going to have much of anything when they follow that routine. They won't have a good health, they won't be happy, and they won't have virtually any of the good things that everybody wants. And when I talk about having it all, I have identified the things that constitute all. Happy, healthy, at least reasonably prosperous and secure, have friends, peace of mind, good family relationships, and the hope that the future is going to be better. And also the need to love and be loved, can have all of those things. And yes, you certainly can. But it starts with the character base mentioned throughout this book. It starts with a dream that you have. And it starts with your organizational process, putting all of them in the formula. I encourage you to consider carefully again what you've read about when I described the day before vacation and how all of those things fell into place. Remember, lack of time is really not the problem. It's lack of priorities. Lack of time is not the problem. It's the lack of priorities. That's the problem. I'm grateful to be able to say that, yes, I do have all those things, but I work at them every day. I do the things that need to be done, and I segregate my life to this degree. When I'm at home, I'm really at home. And that redhead of mine, when I'm when I'm on the job, I'm intense and I concentrate on what I'm doing. It's important to prioritize, organize, make the commitment, have the dream, and keep records, keep track of your plan's progress, so you can clearly understand that things are not going to happen by accident. They are going to happen because you plan on them happening and you follow through with them. That is huge. Whatever you can track, you can grow. Whatever you can track, you can grow. You know, we speak to a lot of coaches and they're always like, yeah, I go live every Friday. I do some speaking engagements. I get referrals, word of mouth. And I'm like, okay, if you can, do you have like a chart? How are you tracking this? And they're like, well, it's kind of like a feeling, whatever I want to do, however I want to go about things. And it just like kills me because I'm like, it clearly shows that it clearly correlates with how you're bringing in income, how, your priorities are not set to what you want to accomplish. If someone wants to accomplish 50K per month, let's say, that's their base goal, 50K per month. Well, how are you going to accomplish that? How can you start making it more of a system? How can you make it into a a continuous thing. So you know that your output results into this input that you can constantly track and be in control of. That's what he's talking about. Keep track of your plans, progress, so you can clearly understand that these things are not going to happen by accident. They are going to happen because you plan on them happening and you follow through with them. That's the reason there's so much motivation in this program and a view from the top. As mentioned earlier, Stanford University study revealed that 95% of all the students who have an idea never followed through because they did not have the resources. Right now, you are holding in your hand the resource that enables you to have it all. But let me tell you something. If you finish reading and say, I really enjoyed the book, that would please us. But we're looking for a lot more than that. If you say, I really got a lot out of that, that would make us even happier. But when you get through it and say, I really enjoyed this, I got an awful lot out of it, and here's my game plan, my action plan, and that I put together to make it happen for me, that's the way you can have it all. Balance significant goals. This is the program. We need to look at a balanced significant goals program because it is important part of life. Howard Hill was undoubtedly one of the greatest archers who ever lived. He entered 287 archery tournaments and he placed first 287 times. I've seen newsreels of Howard Hill shooting a bullseye target dead center, and then the next arrow would split the first one down the middle. Incredible. He could outshoot any rifleman in the world from a distance of 30 feet. He was so amazing. So when I make the next statement, you're probably going to raise your eyebrows and think that I'm kidding you. I'm not very good at archery myself, but I am an instructor extraordinaire. Now, let me tell you just how good I am. I could spend 20 minutes with you, and if your eyesight is good and your physical health is good, and in 20 minutes, I would have you hitting the bullseye more consistently than Howard could on his best day. Provided, of course, we had first blindfolded Howard and turned him around a couple times so he would have no idea in which direction he was facing. And now you're thinking, obviously, nobody can hit a target they can't see. And that's a good point. But let me make a better one. How on earth can you hit a target if you don't have one? Do you have a goals program? The benefits are enormous. If you have a goal, did you write it down? And did you identify the benefits that would be yours when you reached it? Did you identify the difficulties and the barriers that stand between you getting there? Did you identify what you need to know in order to get there? Have you identified the people, the groups, the organizations that you'll need to work with to accomplish it so that it will be significant? Have you developed the exact plan of action? Have you set the date for reaching that goal? And until you do these things, my friend, you really don't have a goal. You just have a wish or an abstract dream that might or might not, but probably will never take place. Love it. So let me tell you, one of the benefits actually is combined. It's a combined benefit from having a goal program. There was a UCLA study on the people who attended Peter Lowe's Huge Success Seminar. These people included everybody from psychiatrists, truck drivers, government workers, civil service workers, physicians, college students, professors, household executives, entrepreneurs, CEOs of big companies, CEOs of small companies, and military personnel. Out of all these people, those who had a balanced goal program earned on average $7,400 a month. Those without goals earned an average $3,397 a month. And this has been recorded in academia. There's proof. But here's the rest of the story. Not only did they earn more than twice as much money, they were happier, they were healthier, and got along better with their family at home. The reason for this was very simple. When you have a plan of action and know the direction in which you want to go, you simply don't sweat the small stuff. you're able to do much more. You're able to do much more when you have a goals program, and I encourage you to get heavily involved in the following. In the follow through. The discipline that goes with a goals program is one of the major keys in making it happen. Discipline is so important. I love that. I'm gonna use that for a newsletter. Dreams and goal setting. Like that. I just highlighted, but I'm gonna put it as a newsletter. That's a good one. Dreams and goal setting. The first thing that you need to do is write down in a notebook or a piece of paper with the heading dream sheet, all the things that you ever wanted to do, or should take you about a half an hour or an hour. Then put it aside for 24 to 48 hours, because during that period of time, you will think of other things. You want to add it. This is very important. And after day 2 or 3, you need to ask yourself some questions about each of those things that you wrote. Here are some of the questions that you should be asking yourself. Is this really my goal? Is it morally right and fair to everyone concerned? Is it consistent with other goals? Can I emotionally commit myself to finish this goal? Can I see myself reaching this goal? Will reaching this goal make me happier? Will reaching this goal make me healthier? Will reaching this goal make me more prosperous? Will it make me more friends? Will it give me more peace of mind? Will it make me more secure? Will it improve my relationships with others? Now, if you can't answer yes to 1 or 2 of these questions, just scratch that goal. Just kindly scratch that goal out for that moment. What you need to do is remember that you have to have some big goals to cause you to reach and be significant. They may be out of your reach right now, but not out of sight. So keep that in mind. You also need some large range goals. And the reality is you will have some short range frustrations and failures. And if you don't have long range goals, then every obstacle becomes a full ocean front. But when you have a long range goal, then the obstacle simply becomes a pebble on the beach. Go as far as you can. You can go as far as you can see. And then when you get there, you'll be able to see further. You will also need daily goals. Those are what keep you active. Some goals are ongoing, like developing your self-worth, getting a better education, building better relationships with your family, improving your time on the treadmill, etc. There are some things you are always working on, and some goals require consultation, like financial goals and educational goals. And most goals must be specific. When you make those dreams your goals, and you ask yourself those questions, that long list that you started with will absolutely reduce dramatically, and that's important. You see, there are probably more than 50,000 ways in America to earn a living, so you have to focus on what's important to reduce the goals. Walk down the list, ask yourself, is this really my goal? Go right down the list and reduce it considerably. Yes, goals are enormously important. So follow the instructions and discipline yourself to follow through, because discipline makes the difference, especially on those days when you flat out don't feel like doing anything. Daily discipline. When I was working on my weight loss and involved myself in other things as well, I had a speaking engagement in Seattle, Washington. I flew there that morning and flew back that night. By the time that I got home and got ready in bed, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, in those days, I thought I had to exercise the first thing in the morning. So I had set my opportunity clock to get up at 5:30 each morning. Well, as I looked at my clock and thought about getting up at 5:30, I thought, if I get up at 5:30, I'm going to feel terrible. And I almost pulled out the plug. I really didn't want to get up when that clock sounded off, and I really didn't. I was still grumbling and a little bit tired when I put on my shoes and went for my jog. And I surely did not have any fun on that run. And the day was not very productive. Yet that is one of the most important decisions that I ever made, to keep my commitment regardless of the circumstances. No exceptions. Exceptions destroy people's dreams and keep them from being significant. If an alcoholic has been dry for 3 years but takes just one drink, you know what happens then? If I had given in to my exhaustion that night and I didn't get up in the morning, the next time, maybe on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, I wouldn't have thought I could skip my exercise and so on. It takes discipline to accomplish goals. If you take this approach to life, you are going to enjoy your view from the top. Here's some self-talk. I'm reaching your goals, and reaching your goals, which is to achieve significance and maintain a balanced life. You need to talk to yourself big time. Okay? You need to talk yourself big time. I mentioned this earlier in the book when on the subject of the day before vacation approach to life, and how if you used those qualities daily, good things would happen. You've got a lot more qualities than we identified that day. So photocopy and use the following personal commitment and those following pages, which contains a life-changing procedure. Wow. Oh, wow. He has like these 2 scripts. That's awesome. So one script is getting started, my personal commitment. And then there's another one that's called a life-changing procedure. That's awesome. I want you to get the book and get this. That's awesome. Because you need to actually, it's like a little contract with yourself. And you actually need to sign it at the bottom. I love that. I'm going to read this personally. Okay. You need to get the book to get that. Oh, which is cool. I'm going to say this. After the 30 days out of this next step, choose your strongest quality and the one that you feel needs the most work. Example, strongest, honest, needs the most work, organized. Strongest, being honest, needs more work, being organized. Then on a separate 3x5 card printout, I, Isabel Bedell, am completely honest person, and every day I'm getting better and better organized. I love that. It's such a great thing, like keeping a 3x5 laminated card with you, with your goals specifically, and seeing it every single day. Like it's so important. Like we have it. We also have like, depending on what it is that we're looking to achieve. Like, for example, we have like money, like actually just chilling on our desk so we can see it. And every time that we see it, we're able to attract it even more, specifically for what we're looking to achieve for that specific time. If we have, like, for example, I like to do this. Like I like to write down my overarching goal, right? And then behind it, I have specific ways to achieve it, or like what I'm going to do with it. You know, like I write down like, this is the specific goal. And then I have like all the things that would benefit from it, like what I would do. So happy and grateful now that this is happening, how we would do it, how it would be structured, what we would do with it, how it would benefit people. Why are we doing it? You know, there has to be like a real reason for it, not just because I want to buy shoes or something. That'd be silly. So like just being a lot more conscious with what you're asking will allow that specific thing to come to you faster, right? Awesome. The following stories illustrate the positive results of using these self-talk strategies. When I first started this project and was deeply involved in the importance of self-talk, there was an occasion in New Orleans that I will never forget. A lady and her daughter were there, and I was talking about claiming for yourself the qualities of faith, honesty, integrity, and hard work. A little over 2 months later, I received a self-talk card the lady sent me that her daughter had been using. On the card, the daughter had underlined and underscored this and started claiming all the qualities that were there, including the one on faith. My mother said to me that on the letter, the mother said to me in the letter, Mr. Ziglar, my daughter became a Christian. She was killed on February 27th of this year. I have to tell you, that was one of the most moving experiences I've ever had. It demonstrated the power of claiming the qualities that God has put in you. And you need to look at yourself in the eye, get in the front of the mirror and claim the qualities. Wow. One of the reasons they've worked is because they are all biblical qualities, simply meaning that they absolutely have been tested and tried over the years. The second and equally moving experience I've had with self-talk was when I was in Salt Lake City. I had spoken to a large organization, and afterward I was signing books when a lady came up and said, Mr. Ziglar, I need to talk to you. And the look in her eyes told me that I needed to listen, despite the fact that there was a line waiting behind her. She said, when I heard you speak and got your tapes and looked up at those qualities, I got the card. But I have to tell you, when I looked just quietly at some of the qualities that you wanted me to claim, I could not claim them, and no way. I've been beaten down all of my life. There was no way I thought this way about myself. I had to listen to your tape several times before I could even get through the first 2 or 3 statements on the card, and I couldn't continue until I listened to those tapes some more. And then she said, the day came when I could get down to about 8 of those qualities. And Mr. Ziglar, when that happened for the first time in my life, I realized that I had value, that I could do things with my life, and that I was important. And I literally sank to my knees and wept joy and relief. I kept listening, I kept talking, I kept claiming these qualities. I appreciated the fact that you mentioned that despite the fact that I was awfully weak in some of the qualities in Joel 3:10, it clearly says, let the weak say, I am strong. So I kept talking and kept doing the things you were talking about. And after 3 to 4 weeks, my husband said to me, there must be something to this. I'm seeing a dramatic change in your life, and I'm going to do exactly what you are doing. Then the lady looked at me, and with tears in her eyes, Mr. Ziglar, for the first time in years, I believe there's hope, not only for me, but for our marriage. There is no joy that equals someone sharing that kind of experience with you. There are so many things that you can do that seem small, yet to another person, they might be huge. And if you keep practicing and talking about the things that you've been reading about in this book, you will become a difference maker in other people's lives. Now, I'm just going to read a few of these qualities, and you look yourself in the eye and say, I, and then state your name, okay? I, Isabel, am an honest, intelligent, organized, responsible, committed, teachable person who is sober, loyal, and clearly understands that regardless of who signs my paycheck, I am self-employed. I'm an optimistic, punctual, enthusiastic, goal-setting, smart, working self-starter who is a disciplined, focused, dependable, persistent, positive thinker. All of this self-talk gives you control. And the reality is, until you learn to manage yourself, you're never going to be able to lead other people. Claim all these qualities every morning and every night for 30 days. And after that, you need to identify 2 specific qualities that you have. Number 1 is the most powerful and the most positive, the strongest quality that you have. And the number 2, identify the weakest quality that you have. So let's say that you're an optimistic person, but your organization skills are not strong. What you do next is write on the card and then say out loud, I am a complete optimist and my organizational skills are getting better every day, better every day, better every day. You're going to discover that something amazing will happen. I'm sure you've noticed that when you buy a green Ford, all of a sudden, everybody in town starts driving a green Ford. Well, likewise, when you absorb these qualities, everywhere you go and everything that you do, something intriguing happens. So for example, when you turn on the television set, what are they talking about? How to get better organized. You go to the restaurant and sit down for a cup of coffee, and the people in the next booth are talking about getting better organized. Newspaper magazine articles are all about how to get organized. You will become convinced that there is a conspiracy out there to help you get all those things that you want. And you know what? You would be absolutely right. It's amazing what happens when you start moving in this direction. People will step aside, pat you on the back, and say, go on and get him. You'll have encouragement from everywhere you go. Beautiful. Discipline and obedience. People have asked me, how long do I have to keep doing this self-talk? And my answer is only as long as you want the benefits. That's how long you can keep doing it. It's amazing what happens when you keep the input positive, keep claiming those qualities, and keep following through. And I guarantee you're going to love the view from the top. One of the reasons that immigrants are so successful, in fact, they are 4 times as likely to become millionaires in the United States as those who are born here, is the fact that they practice a tremendous amount of discipline. And I think the story demonstrates exactly what I'm talking about. I had the privilege of speaking at the Notre Dame football team before one of their bowl games. And before the game, my wife and I were having dinner with Coach Lou Holtz, 3 assistant coaches and 3 student assistants. While eating our meal, about every 2 minutes, one of the assistant coaches would tell one of the student assistants that he needed to have more information about a specific scenario. Immediately, one of the student's assistants would jump up and run to find out whatever needed to be done. Then 2 minutes later, one would take off, then another. They were up and down, almost the entire time. Although it was kind of fun to watch, I felt kind of sorry for the guys and gals because they weren't getting much to eat. While they were all gone on one of the trips, the head coach said, Zig, we have about 250 freshman students who volunteered to be student assistants. And at the end of the 4 years, out of them, about 250 of them are still serving. Occasionally, I meet them when traveling around the country, and they tell me, Coach Holtz, I was a student assistant at Notre Dame for 4 years. And I always ask them the same question. What is the name of the company that you're running today? Lou said that in 100% of the cases, they will either name the company or they would say they're not running the company, but they have hundreds of people in their department. He said that these young men and women have accomplished much because of the discipline that they enforced upon themselves and the spontaneous obedience they offer the person in charge of telling them what to do. There's never a chip on their shoulder or any resentment. And then for years, I would read where certain military commanders, after 20 years of service, are now CEOs of various companies. And I think to myself, what on earth can that man or that woman know about running a corporation? When I started doing work with military and some of their training programs and creating training programs for them, it finally dawned on me that in the military, the first thing that you learn is obedience. When you're on the firing line and the commanding officer or the sergeant says, move out, there's no time for debate or hesitation. Obedience is expected and orders are to be followed through, as many lives depend on it someday. Now, as you move up, you learn tact and diplomacy about it, but the expectancy is a big key. And that's what Lou Holtz was saying to me about those young men and women who had done so well. They had the discipline and obedience in their lives, which are the keys to succeed. Wow. I 100% believe in that. And I think I don't know if this is something to do with it, but I don't know. I feel like the firstborn, if you're the first kid, the firstborn, I feel like you somehow have a lot more obedience than the other kids. I grew up very obedient, and I guess the discipline came from sports and all that other stuff. But my brother, on the other hand, he never learned obedience. He was always been a rebel. And I guess the discipline that he's learned is through his job, what he does. And the obedience came from life experiences that hurt, you know? So like, I wonder if that's a thing, you know? I wonder. Anyways, that's a whole different topic. Okay. Authoritarian and authoritative. One of the most important distinctions we need to make is if we expect to ever enjoy the view from the top, is the difference between being authoritarian and authoritative. Authoritarian simply means that a parent says to a child, do this because I said to do it. And if the child is 2 years old, you don't need to go into a detailed explanation. But if the child gets older and starts developing their own thinking capacity, then we need to say, here's what I want you to do because, and give them a legitimate reason for the following, because for your particular request. Here's a personal example. On the first Friday night after my son got his driver's license, he wanted to drive to West Texas, about 150 miles, to a high school football game where his team was participating. And I said to him, son, no, you can't drive that far away. And the reason you can't is simply because on Friday nights, there's a much higher percentage of drunks on the highway. Number two, the traffic is heavier because of all the high school football games. And your experience right now is not enough to deal with all those situations. Now, your day is coming, but not now. There was no further discussion necessary. He said, okay. When we give a reason for a decision, that's authoritative. And that's what develops communication skills and trust and follow through. I'll never forget when a friend of mine and his family picked me up at the airport in Cleveland when we had agreed to go to lunch and then go to the hotel where I was going to be staying. On the way, one of his sons, who was about 8 years old, said that instead of going a certain way, his dad could take another route that would be faster. My friend answered, well, son, I have thought about that, but I thought it completely through. I realized that this was the more direct route because the lights are better arranged and organized. But that was a good idea that you had. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. The father showed his son courtesy and respect. He listened to him. He was authoritative, not authoritarian. That's a huge difference. The authoritarians say, do it because I say so. The authoritative person says, here's the reason we do it. That makes for a much more cooperative spirit in the person. That's so true. And as a leader of an organization, as someone that employs people and that has daily meetings with people and that you're assigning tasks on a daily basis, you know, a lot of these people that you're employing, you know, they're smarter than you. I know my team is smarter than me in so many different ways. Okay. So like sometimes I don't know how to do something. So how can I be an authority in a space where I know that they're the ones handling that situation? So the way that you're able to handle that is by doing exactly how he was saying. The reason we do it, which goes back to like the mission statement, you know, the values of our company. So like literally I use the values and I use our target audience, who we're serving, how we're serving them, the speed, the quality, the attention to detail. Like those are all the values that we're putting in place if something is being tasked and I have no idea what it's about. So if you're a leader, if you're someone that's employing people that are smarter than you, use that as a base. It's very important. Okay. Anyways, finishing well. In this final session, you will understand why we've covered everything in the previous chapters, because now we're headed for the right reason for doing all of that. Now let's begin with this thought. When I discipline myself to eat properly, live morally, exercise regularly, grow mentally and spiritually, and not put any drugs or alcohol in my body, I have given myself the freedom to be at my very best, perform at my best, and reap all the rewards that go along with it. And that certainly includes finishing well. When I think about finishing well, I think of my mentor, Fred Smith, and a phone call he received from his son, Fred Jr. He said to him, "Dad, why don't we go to London and look at some of the old bookstores and spend a considerable amount of time together?" They agreed, and they had an absolutely magnificent experience. Fred told me that the one thing that Fred Jr. talked about and asked on every occasion was, "Dad, I know that you've dealt with many executives over the years, men and women, who's been tremendously successful in their lives, but Dad, tell me, how did they finish? How did they finish well?" That's a very important issue because it's certainly something all of us want to do, is finish well. And as a youngster, one of my first assignments in the garden was to hoe 2 long rows of beans. There are 2 things I knew about my mother's assignments. First of all, I knew that she was going to show me exactly how to do. And then second, I knew that she was going to expect from me my very best. This is a very important point. She did not expect me or any of my brothers and sisters to be the absolute best in the world at everything that we did. That would have been impossible, but she did expect us to do our very best. She always explained that when you do your best, this saves you a lot of time because you don't have to do the job ever again, or the job over. And more importantly, even then that you can lie down at night with the simple but effective feeling of knowing that you did your best. You sleep better when you do that. When you do that, when you do the best that you can, that's where the good feeling comes from. And that too will help you finish well. Born a winner. In the game of life, we know that there are some people who do a lot of wonderful, marvelous things, but for whatever reason, they're not in a position to receive much praise and recognition. But that issue is your best performance. One of the things that I want to emphasize is that you don't have to win them all in order to be a winner. So for example, George Washington, as he fought for our country's freedom during the Revolutionary War, he only won 2 battles, but those 2 were the most important battles, especially the last one. Abraham Lincoln was involved in 15 elections and he only won 3 of them. But isn't he the man who really brought America to the realization that slavery was wrong, which led to the freedom and preservation of the Union itself? You don't have to win them all to be a winner, but you have to give your best on every occasion to be the winner you were born to be, and to enjoy a life that is absolutely magnificent. The commitment involved is absolutely tremendous and well worth it. I love the story of John Stephen Akhwari, who was totally committed, a marathon runner in the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. Early in the race, he fell and severely injured his knee and ankle. And after a medical attention, they were where they bound up his bloody knee and ankle. He re-entered the race to finish the marathon. He hobbled every step, each causing excruciating pain. When he finally crossed the finish line, more than 2 hours after the last person who had finished before him, he actually took a victory lap. When he finally came to stop, the media asked him, "You knew you had absolutely no chance of winning that race. Why didn't you just stop? You were hurt. You were in pain, yet you continued until you finished the race. Why?" And then John Stephen was like, he said, "My country did not send me 7,000 miles to enter this race. It sent me 7,000 miles to finish this race. This happened many years ago, yet people are still amazed at this story of commitment and persistence. If you're in a position where you don't get a lot of praise and recognition, let me remind you that your objective is to finish the race, not just start the race. Regardless what anybody else says about you, your self-esteem, the commitment, the satisfaction, the joy that comes from giving it your best shot, all of your life is absolutely beyond belief. That's one way you can best rest assured that regardless of how much other people recognize you, you will have the internal satisfaction of knowing that you did what was right. You gave it your best shot, and yes, you will finish well. And your view from the top is going to be especially sweet. Love that. Awesome. Okay, in the next video, I'm going to finish the last chapter. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. I know each chapter is supposed to be 2 chapters, so I'll finish chapter 11 with 1 video, and I'll see you in the next one. Talk to you soon.